was living a lie. In the darkness, I was scared of the light. With no direction, I was running away. Step aside, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
So I have a PowerPoint here. Again, there's no order of this. I just want you to, I'll give you an order. They say you should probably facilitate a certain way, which is in your materials, about 50 times. And then you develop your own way of doing it, your own recipe. It's like the recipe. I was given a recipe for a peacemaking dialogue recipe. Now, just know that we're in circle here. Now, what I've experienced too is sometimes we'll be in circle, there'll be 5 or 6 people. We'll do the listening exercise, I'll be in another room, and then someone will come in and say there's really, something else is really powerful in there. Let it go. So we let it go, but we're still in circle. They can't, if they think it's important, especially when you're facilitating what happened in that room. We'll talk about it later. That's another thing we do. We do pre-facilitator conferences and then post-facilitator conferences. So I don't have, like in my law practice, I go home and I unload on him about my day. This happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. With co-facilitation, you don't have to. And we've been in co-facilitations where we've done such good work, we think, with the couples, that they're outside talking in the parking lot when they hadn't talked to each other in months. Where they came separate, in separate cars, 2-3 hours away. And we did the listening exercise, we used a talking piece, and they're out in the parking lot talking. And we've said, as co-facilitators, I think they're going to have sex. We get to have our judgments after and before, so you don't have to hold it in. But we're not going to bring our judgments to them because it's their issue. We don't even know what their issue is. We can't pretend to know the multitude of events that has happened in this relationship. So nearly all of them, I'd say all of them don't even know what a circle is. So first of all, one consideration that comes up, it doesn't come up for me because I've done it so often, is people are paying for this. So it's like some people might be, doing a listening exercise, that's a waste of time. And because we're leaders, you're all going to be leading it. They're not going to say that to you. But like the second circle and the third circle, they'll say, I thought that was, a big waste of time, but it was the best thing that ever happened. So if you take the time to do it, you can disappear the conflict. Otherwise, it becomes a vicious circle. It's never expressed. And the people that you're dealing with will be uncomfortable at first. I was told, do the silence until I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I don't meditate. I'm uncomfortable after 3 seconds, so it can't be my comfort level. It has to be until the others in the room are uncomfortable. But what we've developed is circle guidelines. And I've developed where we pass these out, because they know nothing about circles. We're calling it circle mediation. They don't know anything about mediation. They sometimes think the mediator is going to make the decision. And we do what's called facilitative. And we're facilitating communication between the two of them. I repeat, we're facilitating communication between the two of them. So when they start talking to me, I direct them to talk to each other. And then we've done the listening exercise. And we have a talking piece, so they're forced, really, to listen and not interrupt each other with They will. You just need to be prepared. They will. So the circle is voluntary. When we tell people that our process is a consent process, they don't even know what that means. And we're like, well, you can be here, you can leave, you can not be here, you know. Then when we get to sign a participation agreement, and and it's very short and sweet, and they don't want to sign it or just want to read it first, okay. You mean it's consent? Yeah. We're not making you sign anything. It's a consent process. And so after they get that consent it's the detriment of our process and the beauty of it, right? Because it's a detriment. It's like, that means I can leave if I want to. That means I don't have to be there. So circle is voluntary. Then respect the talking piece in your hand. Listen when it's in another person's hand. So that's a very simple technique. Everyone has equal opportunity to speak. You may pass the talking piece. Try to be brief and to the point. I don't believe in the brief and to the point. Actually, we're supposed to cross that out, Lori. We don't want people, if it's just a small circle, to be brief and to the point. We don't want to edit them. We don't want them to think they only have 2 seconds. And we have sat in circle where they're talking and they're talking to the other person. They're talking and they're talking and they're talking. Tom sat with me, and they're talking and they're talking and they're talking and they're talking, and the person's listening and listening and listening and listening, and you think something's going to have a big fight, and you think, oh my gosh, what's happening here? They're swearing and he's talking and he's talking, and scratch it out on your paperwork. Scratch it out on your paperwork. For big circles like this, it's probably a good idea. Speak from the heart with honesty and compassion. We have added listen from the heart with honesty and compassion for our program. Speak in a good way. Be respectful and kind. I'm crossing that one off. I mean, we want people to have the conflict. You can keep it there, but don't expect it to be adhered to. I have had more clients when I'm sitting there and we're with the mediator then they want to express something where the mediator says, please be quiet, don't talk. That isn't good. That isn't good. It doesn't facilitate any kind of conflict resolution. And they're there for conflict resolution. And you'll know what the conflict is when you're sitting in the room, and I'm going to teach you how to find the act. Because you're all going to be talking about a certain thing. Like, it's kind of easy when people are talking about a divorce. I mean, easy. But what I've learned is we're not talking about who gets the kids, who gets the property, who we're talking about real conflict. And that'll come out of it, right? If we're coming into the room with the agenda, like they have in court mediations, of getting this custody resolved, getting this divorce done, we're not doing our work. We're not doing our job, because we're facilitating them communicating about what caused this from the beginning. And Tom can attest to this. So sometimes it's stalled a little bit. And I'll say one of the things that we do in our, I'll call it relationship breakup, because a lot of our people don't get divorced. It's really amazing. So I never have divorce as the agenda. But we talk about, so I will say one of the things in the law is the only thing you really need is a divorce decree, and that's just one order. Terminate your marriage is hereby terminated. I said what we need to know is irreconcilable differences. And mostly they'll say, I'll agree on that. And in court, it's like if one person agrees, the other one has nothing to say about it. I mean, that's like but there is in the law a 6-month period where there is not a presumption of irreconcilable differences, a rebuttable presumption, until you've been separated for 6 months. And most people today are still living together when they're getting these divorces. So I will go to the when did you separate, right? And And they'll say, oh, we don't remember the date. And, oh, we're, and then I'll go, well, when, what around the time, this and that. And I'll try to get to you'll learn, the act. There's something that you're going to find back in history is when the other shoe dropped or whatever. There's something there, and I can give you amazing. Then they start talking again, and it's all you're facilitating communication between them. So if the communication is going to be, okay, I'll agree to custody and we're not going to get there because they haven't communicated about what's bringing them to the circle. And then speak in a good way. All people are treated equally. All ideas are equally important. All decisions are made by consensus. Okay, and that's between the two of them. We don't get involved in their decision making. That's between the two of them. We just know that for facilitative purposes. And it's amazing that you'd think, how can you get people to concede? It works. And then circle is confidential. Ask for permission to share stories outside the circle. Circle's just confidential. Confidential is another fake thing in mediation. Would you agree? Because I remember when we'd have these mediations 20 years ago, and somebody would bring up in mediation, it's only confidential if there's it's fake confidential, okay? So, but all our conflicts are in the room, they're confidential, but we have a camera person here, okay? So, we don't know what's going to happen there, but I just want you to know that there needs to be a space for that confidential, a real space for it. And that's between the people in the room. That's where it really, really happens. And you don't have to sign for it. You don't have to write for it. As an attorney, I have attorney-client confidences. I like to say it's the only confidences left. People can confess murder to me, and I can't tell anybody. Now, a priest has to actually tell now. So that's how. The lawyers are the only people left that you can actually go to with something in confidence. And so I'm going to just go through the PowerPoint. So once upon a time or long ago, find this in your book. And what you're going to do here is write down briefly what conflict that you would like your partner to help you with. Preferably a family conflict. Now, some of you might just want to be the facilitators, but you'll all take the role as facilitators. You'll all take the role as starting the circle. You're also going to take the role, and this is the beauty of circle, as we do substitutes. And it's just amazing. Like I've heard it said, like a substitute, like somebody's playing soccer, and let's throw in the substitute. And they don't play soccer like the person. They're not substituting, saying, if I were Johnny, how would I be feeling right now? You're actually going to be in the moment, and as the person's talking to you, you're going to be hearing what they're saying. And you're going to say back, is that it? After they've talked, and they have an opportunity to say yes or no, or it was sort of it, or no, I don't think I've conveyed what I have to convey. They won't, but they'll be like, it's amazing. They'll be like, you're my wife. I mean, this is exactly, she doesn't hear me, she doesn't listen to me. Well, maybe he's just communicating a little differently. So we're going to go through a conflict. The vicious circle, where do I turn? I'm going to tell you what a vicious circle is. I don't know how to demonstrate this. You'll have a little piece that describes what a vicious circle is. There's a circle over here, and put the words, what happened? And then there's another circle over here that says your story about what happened. And what invariably happens is the two circles conflate, and your story about what happened becomes what happened. The problem with that is that there's somebody else that has an idea of what's happened, has a story about what's happened, and then there's their story about what happened. And that's there, and that conflates into what happened. And then there's a third person, and they know what happened, and then they have their story about what happened, and that conflates into what happened. And then there's a fourth person. They have their story about what happened, and then that conflates. So everybody knows what happened. I know exactly what happened. So in our work, what you're going to try to find is the act. What really happened? What's the forensic fact here? Not, there'll be cases where I talk on the phone. Oh, he was so abusive. So abusive. Oh, and I'll say, well, what happened? Oh, my gosh. He was just abusive. We'll just leave it at that. Well, what exactly happened? Brian's nodding the head. Well, if you don't know, well, I just, what happened? I was harassed. Oh my gosh, you were harassed? Yes, I was harassed. Oh, what happened? I was harassed. Okay, what happened? I was so harassed. I just can't tell you how harassing it was. Well, tell me what happened. You're laughing because it's true. I had an order, and I couldn't believe this judge. I was, of course, defending this person, and the person came in with a harassment restraining order, which you can get any time now for any reason. I saw that coming. And the judge made a factual finding. I'll say, Johnny was harassed. I conclude that Johnny was harassed. Here's your harassment restraining order. So you never really know what those factual findings are. They have to have the box. Facts. You check off the box. I know Gail knows this. And you don't know exactly what was the act of harassment. Okay. What actually, and there's definitions of harassment. So what we're going to be training you to do with this listening is to find the act. And that's called a pre-circle. You're going to sit and pre-circle. We're going to do one this afternoon with a real call. They called me up with the problem, and we're going to model what we do in our office when somebody calls, and I took the intake. And he's coming here this afternoon to be, I just listened. He was a referral. I didn't even get the detail. Like I'd be getting who referred you? You're the only one that can help, blah, blah, blah. And it was illegal, of course. I can help legally. But he's coming this afternoon, this brave soul, to actually do we're going to go through the phone call, what we do before the phone call, the orientation that we do, which we know we can even do them remotely now all over the country. We just did one. It was pretty amazing. We had somebody in California who knew of our work. He had an issue with his daughter and the mother. They were in Nevada. We were in Minnesota. And I'm just like, I'm always experimenting. Remember, no right or wrong way. I'm always experimenting. And we did it. It was just phenomenal. It was 4.5 hours. We didn't even do a pre-circle. We sort of did one with the father, but sometimes you just know what the issue is. We went back 9 years to the act and disappeared the conflict with the dad and the daughter. Did we not? In 4.5 hours. We did the listening kind of exercise, so you'll be learning the act. So how I got involved, I think I told you I've been a lawyer since 1986. I've been a conciliation court judge for years and years. And you know what? I started implementing Circle with that guru I told you about. He goes, why don't you try it in court when you're sitting on the bench? And I'm like, how can I do that? I remember calling him on the way to court. How am I going to do it? He goes, just do it this way. And so what I did was, and it was like disappear conflict, disappear conflict, disappear conflict. Brian's going, yeah. So the lawyer judge in me would be writing down notes. When did this happen? Da-da-da-da-da, getting it. And in small claims court, what happens is they have just a small piece that they give you. And you have to make your decision that day, but you can't let them know what the decision is. You go back in chambers and make the decision and then hand it out, because they found that people they fight in court. They're just like, or they might come after me. I don't know. It's small claims, but we had, what I do is the plaintiff would get up and talk, and I would explain to them the circle dialogue. I won't say it's circle dialogue. I'll just say, defendant, listen to plaintiff and tell me what you hear. Not whether you agree or not, but just tell me what you're hearing plaintiff say. So plaintiff will go on and on and on and on and on. They'll get it all out. Blah, 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 da, 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 da. And I will point to defendant and say, what did you hear plaintiff say? And they'll say, I heard her say she's really pissed off because I showed up at her apartment that day. I'll say, is that it? Yeah, that's it. So it's something totally different than what they're in court for. And then we'll do is there more? And then they'll do more. And then it's really great because you get to facilitate between the two of them, but they're talking to me. And they're in court, so everything wants to, they want to get it resolved somehow. And then, was that it? And we'll go to the defendant, and the defendant will say, after the defendant gets to talk to the plaintiff, is that it? Well, not really, Your Honor. Blah, 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 blah. Was that it? Well, yeah, that's it. Oh, go out. You have a mediator out there that you can talk to. Do you want to mediate this? Yes, I want to mediate this. Okay. They go out, they mediate, resolve. I'd have 30 cases sometimes. A lot of those were defaults, which I have a problem with defaults because now you don't show up to court and it's automatically a default. People don't even prove it up. Craig's a new small claims court judge, and I was telling him that. I'm telling Craig, make sure everybody proves up their case when they come to court and make sure they're served and everything else. I had a great Hennepin County court. I had a great clerk staff. I just walk in, and that's what the judge is only supposed to decide. They're supposed to just be there deciding. They haven't talked with the clerk. They don't know if papers are served. Their only role is supposed to be in this circle and decide and listen and think. But do you think they do that? I had one trial in Hennepin County with Referee Moen while my client is testifying, and there were all kinds of objections the judge could have made. While my client was testifying and testifying and testifying, getting it all out of his system about how horrible the court system is, he was doing other orders. He was signing orders. I watched it. I wanted to report him, and I was just like, why is he doing this? This is my time for my client to be heard. And I've been in criminal court where the same thing has happened, where we've had judge trials that are interrupt. Can I just interrupt for a moment with all these other cases that are happening? So these judges have to understand how important it is to be in court. And family court referee, and for years I was the stop before going to trial. That program ended, I think, in 2015. It might have been maybe 2012. It ended just as I started to profess that I wanted to abolish court for families in 1 year. I founded Family Innocence. I explained that. And then I learned about Restorative Justice Circle. Speaking of that referee, the picture here, the picture depicted here, Judge Peterson gave me that. That was from Tom's class and And he said that Referee Corcoran created this with her clerk. That is the family court process, kind of in a nutshell. So I was like, wow, I have kind of a streamlined process, but this is the real process. This is the real family court maze to go through and how it goes around. So take a really good look at this. And what I learned is that I was explaining circles like this. I'd say, circles, it's great. You just do this, and then you just do that, and then you just do this. And they'd be like, God, I don't want to do that. That sounds really complicated. So when I started to do it in a different way, and it really works to make it simple, because court is complicated. Circles are complicated. You don't know if people are going to show up. So I'd be saying, instead of saying substitutes, I'll say, it doesn't even matter if they don't show up. And they don't know what that means, obviously, right? You mean if my wife doesn't show up to circle, I can still get something done? Yes, you can. Okay, a safe space to come together. So we have the author, the receiver, the facilitator, and then the community. So we use co-facilitation normally. The author is the person that's starting the circle. The receiver is the one brought in. So you're going to be working on your own conflict. So one of you is going to be the author and one of you is going to be the receiver. And so think about that. And then probably you're going to need a facilitator. So breaking you up maybe into 3s or 4s. I don't know exactly. Maybe before we leave today, we'll figure that out, or we can do it next week. But I want to have you all play the role. So you're going to play the role as author. You're going to play the role as receiver by being the substitute. You're going to play the role as facilitator. Okay? So circle is a process of facilitating dispute dialogue. Each person has an opportunity to speak. Participants engage in intentional conversation about values and guidelines for how they want to be together. The process opens and closes with some form of ceremony. We call it a be still moment. Lori gave us that because we don't want it to be awkward, but it always is. That's my judgment, like it's really awkward. Moment of silence, prayer. Building relationship proceeds and is treated as equally important as tackling the difficult issues. So here's the circle. Simple. So you have we're going to demonstrate a facilitator support. I'm going to do that with Tom, and I want to do that before we break. So we'll do that in a couple of minutes, because in the afternoon we have somebody coming. His name's Bill. Circles create a space for deep listening and being heard. Okay, so this is the simple dialogue peacemaking process. A speaks. A confirms B or restates. B shares what they heard, understand A to say. So this is all you need to know. And you'll get it like a recipe. You'll get it like salt and pepper. So pre-circle, identify the act, understand the meaning, review the RC process, invite, and then there's more consent. So we're going to model a pre-circle this afternoon. We'll speed it up a little bit. Pre-circles, I say to people, and actually it's a little trick, because I say, oh, your pre-circle could be up to 3 hours. Oh, I'm not going to be there for 3 hours. So it actually shortens it up for me, because if I don't say that, they'll go on for 3 hours, and sometimes they go on for 4 hours, right, like the other day. So we have a time frame, because everybody in the circle, like we do now, has other things to do. But when you're a facilitator, you have to hold that space. So however you have to do it. Like we had one where 3 of us were facilitating, and then one facilitator had to go. It was all pre-planned. The other facilitator had to go. And I said to everybody, I'll just stay here. And we got, with the couple. So that's the fluid process. Don't feel like, you're being disruptive, because it's actually not disruptive if we know you have to go. We're disrupting you, and most people are very, very respectful. The circle does result always in an agreed action plan, and even if, and I've done this in our mediations, it's just writing down when we're going to meet next, exactly what people, we don't do this treatise about all the things. We just write down, okay, so you're going to do 50-50. Okay, they will do 50-50. Oh, you're going to come back here. And that we're getting at, the agreement has to be very, very specific. That's what I was learned. It has to be very, very specific to have people be in integrity about it. So people will be like, well, why do you want the time down so, that we're writing down that we're going to meet and where exactly we're going to meet? It's 3 words. But that is what I learned. The more specific the agreement is, the more people will be in integrity about it or out of integrity about it. Because it might be, we had one where there was they were going to do this 50-50 week on, week off. They agreed to 5 o'clock. We were just going to get it started. And then she forgot the time. And she was texting her husband and saying, what time is this? And it ended up that in the circle, he was very upset. He goes, they would talk to each other, but you could tell he was very upset that how could she not remember? Like, first of all, our judgment was he didn't want this divorce to begin with. How could she not remember such an important detail as when she's coming to get the kids from me? So that was all talked out, and we even laughed about it, and didn't we, Louisa? But see, that detail was in their agreed action, and it becomes important. And then they learn how to actually make agreements, and I try to tell them, you're making agreements every day. You agree to be here. You agree to, who's going to pick up the kids. You agree to probably, if we counted, we've made a zillion agreements today alone between all of us. Then there's a post circle, a check-in, and evaluate the agreed actions. We do this with the group. What I've learned is the facilitator just offers to be there. Like, I'll offer to, or you might offer, I'll call you and remind you of the post circle. And sometimes these circles are, as you're doing them, in all your walks of life, they're very quick. They don't even know they're doing a circle. You're just kind of stepping in and going, well, I'll help you talk. But it's changing. It's going to change where, even in our office, it's changing where if there's people are talking over each other, someone will come in with a talking piece and give it to me usually. And then, okay, no, give it to the other person so that I listen. And then, okay, I'm not listening. They have the talking piece. It's just, this is going to be a way of life. And another thing Dominic told me is we all have the flame of resolving conflict as children. We just lost it along the way as we got into corporate and school and all of that kind of stuff. So Restorative Justice Circles fills a giant gap in our system of justice. That gap from a minor conflict, we call it the dead skunk. You think it's something minor. You have all kinds of minor conflicts as you go through life. But there's this dead skunk that still smells today, and it's from something that happened a long time ago. And that's what we call the vicious circle. The same fight you have with your sister, the same fight you have with your mother, the same fight you have with your husband. And it's a new way to have an argument. It restores what's been lost. It builds a life-serving structure. I try to tell people, and it's just in conversation, my job is that you leave here and say, both of you, we didn't need Michelle. Why did we even need her? We can do this ourselves. But then I tell them family innocence is going to be with you for any hiccup. We've had calls from 5 years ago. So we are going to be here if you call and have a hiccup. But our goal is that you've learned the dialogue process. You know you're not hearing each other. You know when you're hearing each other. And then see one, do one, teach one. My dad's a physician. He's in his 80s. This is how medicine used to be. See one, do one, teach one. He told me when he first got into medicine over 50 years ago, 57, almost 60 years ago, it was like he'd see one, he'd watch an operation. Then they'd say, okay, you've seen one. Do this operation. And then, show somebody else how to do the operation. This is how simple medicine used to be. So, and that's how simple I want to make this course. So I want you to understand that there's no right or wrong way. There's just these basic things that you need to understand. So where is RC now? It's in schools and youth centers. It's in family networks. It's churches and nonprofits, businesses and workplace, communities, legal, and jails. It's not in the family community, okay? So that's where we're bringing it. We're bringing it in your first community. It's not there. We don't have a restorative system in our homes. Circles can help many people in situations and needs of our family community, support relationships of all kinds, deepen relationships, grief, emotional healing, transitions in life, times of illness, recovery, health crisis, maintaining health. This is not divorce mediation. And in fact, I told you the story about Lori. I'm like, we wrote a course. Like, I already wrote the course. Sure, we'll put it on. I went back and looked at my materials. 40-hour divorce mediation course. I'm like, what was I thinking? It was just the same old course. And this is not that course. And the other piece is that mediators don't have to be certified. You could just go out and mediate, hang up a shingle. If you're good at something that you do, it's like it used to be with doctors. They didn't have to have licenses. Lawyers didn't have to have licenses. They would just learn it in the law. So this isn't a license thing, but that's one of my things that I do. I like to have the real world kind of comport, kind of blend with corporate. And I'm going to introduce this to corporate. We've already had several circle trainings qualified. I was responsible for qualifying one 2 years ago that I met Brian at. Was it 2 years ago or a year ago? It was just a year ago. I met Brian at. So I was responsible. I was nervous about that because it's new, but it got qualified. So this is not court mediation. We don't care about court referrals. I'm an SENE, I'm an FENE. It's not that kind of mediation. So this is an invitation to circles are as simple as this, and then I'm gonna demonstrate with Tom. Here's Judge Peterson taught me this too. He said, Michelle, because I'm sitting there, what the heck is a circle? How does this get anything done? You know, I'm the litigator, right? He said, Michelle, I just was a judge in a case. They had to do up a petition and a summons and all this discovery and paperwork and file it and, have hearings and do research and everything like that. He goes, here's how you start a circle. Take your name and your number and you put it on a piece of paper and you put it in a box. And then a facilitator comes along, pulls it out of the box, and calls you up. That's how it started. I'm like, wow, that's pretty simple. Why do you need a license to do something that's lawful?
I recognize that we have an enemy.
Can somebody help bring that all together? Because it seems like it way got far afield.
None of these rules apply to you until you give court jurisdiction over your family.
That bike is sexy. Growing up, I was living a lie. In the darkness, I was scared of the light. With no direction, I was running away. I tried to cover that I'm losing my mind. Now it's over. I wonder, yeah. A new beginning, it's a new way of life. Another chapter, why not give it a try? This hopeful journey needs an open mind to discover the treasure inside. Now I'm The clouds are running away. I can see the colors every day. Walked away from the fire, and now I'm living in grace. You never know the world until you open your eyes. Never see the truth until you look past the lies. Mother Nature is waiting for you to arrive. Step by side, step by side, enjoy the ride. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do-do-do-do. La, 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 la. Enjoy the ride.
So Michelle is going to leave us with the Family Innocence theme song. We know it's going to be catching on everywhere. So take it away, Michelle.
And I won't have my husband Tom sing with me this time.
You guys are all blessed.
Okay. Camera. Start spreading the bird, beginning today. We want to be no part of it, the family court. The bird is the word. It's flying away to make a brand new start of it. No family court. We want to wake up in a household where we can sleep instead of fearing a judge ready to peep. These family court blows are melting away. We will get to the heart of it with no delay. If we can do it here, we'll do it everywhere. No family court, no family court. One more line. If it is not a crime, we are not doing time in family